Hey everybody, Riot Mort here, and it is time for the patch 1217 rundown. This is the mid-set patch for the Uncharted Realms, so the second half of the Dragonlance set. So this patch rundown video is going to be mostly for people who haven't played a ton of PvE. There is some new stuff in there, but if you're super familiar with the mid-set already, maybe fast forward or watch it on a very high speed till you get to something useful. But for those of you that haven't played a ton of PvE and are looking for a comprehensive list of changes, this is the video. It's just me, gonna power through it pretty quick here so we can get through it all. So let's dive right into that. First thing, as with every mid-set, we take out a bunch of units and traits. We're taking out Revel, lose Tahm Kench, Jinx, Corki, Sona. We're taking out Legend, losing Anivia and Ornn. Ornn probably one of the bigger losses here. Volibear sticks around, just loses the Legend tag. And then we're losing Trainer, so no Heimerdinger, Tristana, Lulu. And then we're also losing a bunch of other units. Pretty good batch loss this time here. I think a lot of units that really never jumped out off the page as like super exciting. A couple that were very powerful utility, but otherwise, yeah. Taric, Aatrox, Ashe, Kayn, Nami, Shen, Thresh, Elise, Alawi, Ryze, Swain, Nico, Talon, and Pyke are no more. So you'll be looking out for their replacements. So yeah, speaking of which, let's talk about the new stuff. So the first big thing is that dragons have changed. No longer in Dragonlands are you limited to one dragon. In the Uncharted Realms, you can play as many dragons as you want, and in fact, the more you play, the more they buff each other. So they still give +3 trait. So for example, Deja still gives 3 Mirage. The amount of health they got was lowered a bit, but if you play Deja and Shyvana, now they also get 20 armor and MR, 10% damage for the third. If you play a fourth, you actually get an extra army slot, which feels pretty good. And you can play up to 5 dragons at level 9. So definitely play as many dragons as you want, mix and match, have some good comps. You know, Idis frontline, Deja backline feels pretty good. In addition, the dragons have gone down in cost to make them a little easier to pivot into and play around. So the 8 gold units have dropped to 7, and the 10 gold units have dropped to 8. So definitely you should be able to afford a few more dragons for your multi-dragon comp in the Uncharted Realms. Because of that, obviously a lot of the dragons have been rebalanced. Generally, you can see the notes here. I won't go over every single one, but they all kind of lost some HP, some armor and MR, maybe some spell damage, things like that, to make up for the reduced cost. Probably the biggest one worth highlighting, though, is Deja. Deja lost all of her AD. Now only does magic damage, so you can't put things like Deathblade on her. So yeah, she still kind of works the same, still wants AP items. Just be aware of that there's no AD Deja build anymore or anything like that. But yeah, generally the dragons are a little weaker, won't be quite as big a spike if you hit them at like level 5, but still quite good, still very spiky, so it's definitely still powerful units you're going to want in your comp. Speaking of dragons though, there's also 2 new dragons to talk about. We have Zippy, who is a guild dragon, and this is at the 6 cost, which is basically the equivalent of a 3 cost champion, but they cost 6. So Zippy's a fun champion, gives +3 guild right away, so that's pretty cool. And then Nomzi, the trainer dragon, used to just be, you know, a summon, is now a reverse summon. Nomzi's a full unit. You can put items on Nomzi now, which is really cool, but every game Nomzi has a different class. Some games Nomzi is an evoker, some games a cannoneer, and some games a mage. Whichever class Nomzi is, she'll summon that Yordle as well. So if you're an evoker game, you get Lulu. Obviously the Yordles have been rebalanced, so they're all about equal. Tristana, for example, gives Nomzi some passive AD to make cannoneer a little better. But yeah, so each game you'll want to see what version of Nomzi it is and which comps you can play. Highly recommend, you know, Evoker's a really good one if you want to go for Evoker, getting that +2, because that's the other thing. They count as +2, so having Nomzi and Lulu is 2 Evoker. Having Nomzi and Tristana is 2 Cannoneer. So pretty cool how Nomzi can enable some extra comps based on which version you get this game. Alright, Monolith. Terra is the new 5 cost, I guess 8 cost dragon. Really powerful. You want to give Gargoyle Stoneplate because the spell scales off armor and MR, which can do a lot of damage to some front lines. But also provides Monolith, which puts 3 hexes on the battlefield. They're in the same place every time. but units in those hexes take 18% less damage. So if you have some powerful backliners, like say an Aurelion Soul or an Ao Shen you want to protect, that can work really well. And yes, you can put Terra in the front hex to get that 18% damage reduction if you want. So really cool to see this dragon. I love this summoning animation. It's pretty sweet. All right, our two big verticals this time. Lagoon. Lagoon is kind of a catch-all trait that can do a lot of things, but generally the idea here is you're trying to get a high score for your Sea Stone. Every time you cast a spell, or a Lagoon unit casts a spell, this counter will go up. As it goes up and reaches certain breakpoints, you will get bonus loot. And so you can get a bunch of stuff. In addition, the more Lagoon units you play, you get some ability power and attack speed. So if you're willing to go like 9 Lagoon vertical, you get 55 AP and 55 attack speed, which can be really cool at getting your Sohm to cast really quick, or your Nyla. As far as the units go, Malphite's a very good frontline. Talia, very powerful early game mage with either a Shojin or a blue buff. Kaisa, kind of weaker without Dragonmancer, but with Dragonmancer can carry your early game. Zac, a very tanky guardian that can heal. Seraphine, really good with Evoker and Mystic, 2 powerful tags. Zeri is not my personal favorite, but there's some good AP builds if you're willing to try Zeri and get Zeri to 3-star. Some pretty nutty 3-star numbers. Nyla, really good assassin, and if Nyla hits a shield or kills a unit, will reset. So you can get some very powerful backline damage. I really like Nyla. And then finally, Sohm. Sohm is a new dragon, brand new. We made our own model. This is not a rehash of anything from League or anything like that. Brand new dragon for the Uncharted Realms. A Lagoon mage dragon. Big thing to note here is Sohm is very good with blue buff. If you don't have blue buff, you probably don't want to play Sohm. But blue buff, very good on Sohm. So definitely check that out. And for those of you that are interested, here is the full table. Lagoon is not random like many of our other econ traits have been in the past. You know exactly what you're getting at each breakpoint. So for example, if you can get to 20 pretty early, you'll get 2 1-cost champs, plus 2 gold. Not bad. If you get to 50, you'll get a Reforger. Cool. The green highlights are kind of like the big power spikes, where maybe if you're considered pivoting, that's like a good spot to get out of. But as you can see, it scales up as you start to reach sort of that end game state past 250. Or 250, you get a random full item. 300, you get an item component. 400, a champ duplicator. 500, you get a Thieves Gloves. And at 600, you even get a Tactician's Crown, which if you want to go for that crazy 12 Lagoon trait, you can check that out. Anything over 750, don't expect anything too crazy. There might be one little hidden treat in there. I'm not going to spoil it. But after 750, it just kind of repeats itself. So nothing too crazy after 750, except for one thing. So be on the lookout. But my personal highest I've seen like normally is like 890, but that kind of requires a radiant blue buff. So Lagoon, see how high a score you can get. Let us know. All right, Darkflight, probably the most controversial one here. If you're looking to start some fights in the early game or have a powerful late game, Darkflight might be really good. But generally the idea here is you play Darkflight units and you'll get this special hex, and you have to sacrifice a unit in that special hex to share the item it's wearing to all the users. Now you can only share one item, and it must be a normal item. You can't share radiant items, you can't share emblems, you can't share anything else. Those will break down into an item called Darkflight Essence, which is sort of this generic Darkflight only item that can power them up. It's not super great and I don't recommend it, but if you have like an extra spatula, it's really good. Otherwise, don't recommend it here. But to show you kind of how this works, you can see here the Sejuani is wearing the Titan's Resolve, and at the start of the fight, the Sejuani is sacrificed, deleted, and all the Darkflight units get a Titan's Resolve. And this works for any crafted item. Some popular ones on PBE has been Protector's Vow, which we'll talk about later. Zerat Portal is a very common one. I expect to see a lot of Zerat Portal early games, so check that out. Zephyrs are kind of fun. I don't know if Zephyr's good, but it's fun. Titan's Resolve, things like that. So yeah, check it out. It's a pretty cool vertical, a little challenging to play. One thing to note here is Swain is the new dragon. Swain is now starts in dragon form. And Swain is a tank. I want to make that very clear. Swain is a tank. You want Swain in your front line with tank items, and he's kind of a drain tank, summons everything. So Other than that, Rengar's back. Rengar's your assassin with your AD items. You've got Aphelios, who can be some good damage with Cannoneer, but also provides an AoE utility stun. And then Rel, who can protect units and be pretty tanky. So, yeah. Alright, other new champions. Nasus is a frontline for Shimmerscale and Guardian. He does the scale up. Pretty good in the early game. A little less defensive than Leona, but a little more offensive, which can be good. Wukong is back. Bonky Kong, really good in Warrior. Probably one of the better reroll comps if you can get it to 3-star. Jax, 2-cost Bruiser, has the AoE dodge that he can do. Dodges just for himself, unlike Shen. But it's a 2-second dodge, which is a lot of tanky power and a decent amount of magic damage. Lux is a single target burst mage. Most of the damage will hit one target really hard, and then the targets after that take a lot less damage. So not really AoE, but can still be pretty good for Astral Mage. I think she's kind of like the backbone of the quintessential Astral comp, which is going to use Vladimir, Silas, and Lux. Zyra's back with her line CC, and with Whispers can stack up pretty high. That spell can hit pretty hard if you're running a 6 Whisper Xayah. Rakan is another champion kind of like Seraphine that I think we'll see a lot with Guardian Mystic. If you want to go that 6 Guardian, 2 Mystic, or 3 Mystic comp, Rakan's really good. Also has an AoE disarm, which is very powerful, shields himself, pairs really well with Xayah, of course. Graves, Tempest Cannoneer, does an AoE shotgun burst. I think you'll see a lot of this guy as a primary carry. Him and Xayah are some big physical AD champions. Expect to see a lot of those. Jace, Guild Shapeshifter, uses AP items well. First transformation, jumps in, does a big slam, AoE knockup, uses AP items well. Then from there, every slam is just damage and healing. But yeah, with that extra health from Shapeshifter, can actually do a decent chunk of damage and stay alive for a long time. So good in guild comps, good as a secondary carry for Shapeshifter. And then finally Pantheon. Pantheon is a Whispers Warrior. Not really going to use the Warrior trait that well, but is going to use Whispers really well. Uses tank items. He has a passive damage reduction, which is very powerful. But he can stack up Whispers pretty quickly. So by his 3rd or 4th cast in a fight, can actually do a surprising amount of damage. So don't sleep on Pantheon. So yeah, a lot of new carries. Check it out. Hopefully should be more interesting than maybe the first half of the set. One other big trade adjustment we have to talk about. Astral got a big change. Astral is no longer with the whole every 5 rerolls get a shop. Excuse me. Now it's just every turn you get an orb. The higher your star level of your Astral champions, the better quality of the orb, and some bonus AP. So you can't really get guaranteed 3-cost Astrals anymore. You kind of have to earn them. You kind of have to roll for them. Because of that, we were able to buff all the Astral champions. So Varus got a buff, Vlad got a buff, Skarner got a buff, Nidalee got a buff. They're pretty good. But yeah, you should be able to get that. And if you want to see what those loot tables look like, you can kind of see it here. Now, there are certain breakpoints to keep in mind. So let's say, for example, you have a 2-star Nidalee, 2-star Vladimir, and 2-star Skarner. That's 6 star levels. You probably want to get one more in, something like a Lux, to hit that 7 to get up to the next level and get a higher breakpoint of orb value. If you can get up to 10, you can see they start to scale pretty high. 10, you're averaging about 4.5 gold, 5 gold of value. 13, you're averaging like 6 or 7, or starting to get item components. And then at 15 plus, which is basically everything 3-starred, you start to get the big stuff. Full items, Aurelian Souls, item components, things like that. So it starts to cycle and be quite a bit of gold every turn. Other fun trick you can do for now is you can play 2 Luxes, and that counts as +4 if you have 2 2-star Luxes. So consider that if you want to reach a certain breakpoint. But yeah, go for that. Get those rewards, stack up, roll down for your 3 stars. And then hopefully, the dream is you have all 5 Astral champions, all 3-starred, all with full items because you've dropped a bunch of items. Hopefully should be a healthier version of Astral that isn't nearly as problematic or buggy as our last version. All right, other trait adjustments. Gonna go quick, but these are all the traits that have changed. Assassin, 2-piece got a small buff, 4-piece is about the same. 6, though, is now a chase since it requires 2 emblems or augments. So 6 Assassin should be very, very powerful if you can hit it. You're not likely to hit it, though, but if you do, cool, a lot of power. Cavalier went down in power just a bit because now there's one more of it. So if you want that full power, you have to go all the way up to 6, which is a lot harder. So Cavalier not quite as tanky as it was at the end of Dragonlands. Bruiser a little less strong at 2, about the same at 4, bigger at 6. And if somehow you hit 8, which honestly a lot of people won't, you get 2,000 health for each Bruiser and 1,000 for the rest of your army. I don't expect to see a lot of 8 Bruiser, or honestly even 6, but there it is. Cannoneer went from a 2-3-4-5 to a 2-4-6. It's a little harder to play. I think 2 Cannoneer is a very good slot in. Expect to see a lot of, Senna, Aphelios openers. But especially in the game where Namzi is a Cannoneer, you might be able to go 4 Cannoneer or even 6 Cannoneer and get some pretty big damage. 6 Cannoneer can blow up front lines very quickly if you've got a Last Whisper. Alright, Dragonmancer went from a 3-6-9 to a 2-4-6-8. There are only 6 Dragonmancers. 6 Dragonmancers still very powerful though. A lot of really cool combinations here. You can go Dragonmancer Swain, you can go Dragonmancer Nunu, stuff like that. If you manage to hit 8, it's a pretty big spike. Not as big as you've seen on PBE, it's been reduced, but it is still a very big spike. That's 1,200 base health. Remember, the star levels scale that up even more. So you can start to see stuff like 8,000, 9,000 health Nunu 3s, which gets pretty insane. Guild's been reformatted quite a bit here with Zippy. Generally what you're seeing here compared to live is that Guild 1, 2, and 3 are actually quite a bit more powerful. You see Sejuani, a single Sejuani went from 100 health to 130 health for your team, so pretty good. But it doesn't quite scale as fast as it did before. So at 8 now you're at 180% of that. It ends up being kind of a small nerf for the really high verticals of Guild, but not that big. The biggest nerf is probably on the Bard side, which didn't change. So if you're running 8 Guild and Bard, you're not going to get quite as much mana per attack, but otherwise should be pretty good. Still a fun trait. You can pick which stats you like and which ones you don't. Guardian got one more Guardian, so now it's a 2-4-6-8. I think you'll see a lot of 2 and 4 Guardian in the early game. 6 is a lot harder to play, and if you can somehow hit 8, you get massive shields. 8 Guardian with Electric Mirage, pretty insane. So have fun with that. Voker is now a 2-3-4. We're not going to add a 5 or 6, even though Namzi can activate this. But the general idea here is if you have a Namzi game, you can get, Namzi plus Lulu plus 1 or 2. Pick how many Evokers you think is right for you and get that extra mana regen for those Invokers. I like Aurelion Soul and Seraphine in the late game, but yeah, go for that. Jade has less units now, so went from a 3-6-9-12 to a 3-5-7-9. A little less attack speed, a little less healing because it's easier to get in and slot in. Still generally pretty good though, pretty easy comp to play. Also now pairs well with Shimmerscale now that you've got Jax touching Shimmerscale, so pretty cool there. Ragewing went from 3-6-9 to 2-4-6-8. I think this is now super flexible. Xayah plus Shyvana is already 4 right there. Add in a Rakan and a Hecarim. That's a lot of CC. I think you're going to see a lot of this comp. The Shyvana into Hecarim, into Rakan, into Jace, into Bard CC chains that this comp can do are insane, giving Xayah plenty of time to ramp up that Ginsu's. Scale score, not a lot changed, other than the health threshold required for Scale Scorn to activate has been dropped to 1900 since a lot of the dragons have less health, so just easier to activate, no big deal. Shapeshifter, there's only 4 Shapeshifters now. 2 Shapeshifter plus 50% health, pretty solid. Definitely want to include that if you're playing like Gnar, Jace, or anything like that. But if you want to go 4, or you have like a Shapeshifter heart, can be very good. 125% bonus health is a lot of health. So these Shapeshifters can have a pretty chunky amount of health. Swift Shot went from a 2-4-6 to a 2-3-4-5. A little easier to slot in. The other thing to note is it's a buildable spat we'll talk about later. Can make some really cool combos. I want to see all the Swift Shot Skarners you got. But yeah, easier to slot in there. Warrior, generally these numbers look lower, but that's because there was a massive bug fix. It used to be that if you procced Warrior and you hit, that could not proc Warrior again. So you had to do another auto, which basically meant it was proccing much less than intended. Now it can proc, which means you're going to see a lot more Warrior procs than you did on live. Because of that, the damage has been lowered slightly. Still generally very good though. There's some really good combos with Wukong, Olaf, Yone, so definitely check that out now. Tempest got a pretty big rework actually here. It used to be that after the 8 seconds and it procced, your Tempest units got a bunch of attack speed. The thing is, a bunch of them really didn't need or want that attack speed. So now instead they get plus damage, and it's a lot. If you're running 6 Tempest, if you're willing to run Ao Shen plus Graves plus, you know, Lee Sin plus an emblem, they're all going to get 60% extra damage. And remember, that's on top of everything else. So this could make Ao Shen a very scary threat in the endgame. Because of that, we lowered the shock damage at 6 and 8 just a little bit. But yeah, should be a more fun version of Tempest. It's still a pretty hard comp to run. Getting an 8 Tempest is pretty hard. But if you can do it, cool. Whispers is very similar. 1, 3, 6 AD and AP, just different units. There's no 8, there's no emblem. Whisper emblem is gone from the game. So you can't have any, you know, Whisper Graves or Whisper Deja or anything like that. But these 6 units can still play together very well and actually make a pretty cool comp with Zyra with backline threat, Siphon with frontline threat, stuff like that. Finally, Mystic. There's a lot more AP threats. The value of Mystic has gone up. Because of that, we have to bring it down a bit. So 2 Mystic, 3 Mystic, not quite as valuable of a splash. If you go 5 Mystic, though, you're investing in it. Cool. Good for you. And finally, Mirage. Not a ton of changes on Mirage. Spell Sword nerfed a little bit. But the big one to call out here is that Pirate has been updated quite a bit and buffed quite a bit. 2 Pirate, same thing, nothing changed. At 4 Pirate, though, you can already start to get loaded dice and item components. That's a change. You couldn't used to get that. At 6 Pirate, now you can even start getting champ duplicators and full items. So this is a very big buff to 6. And then finally at 8, if you can somehow get 8, you're going to start getting 2 components at a time, a full item at a time, champ duplicator plus gold, loaded dice plus gold. So Pirate's like the version where you go if you want to hit 3-star Deja or 3-star Yone, stuff like that. So definitely be willing to more try it, I think, than you were in the first half. That's it for trade adjustments. Anything not listed didn't get changed, like Mage, for example, is still 75, 100, 150, or 125, 150 at 3579. So yeah, that's everything that changed. There are some other champ adjustments, really minor stuff. Ezreal got a slight buff. Senna just got slightly adjusted. You honestly won't notice it being different. Set got some slight nerfs to make up for the fact that Dragonmancer is a little more accessible, but honestly, he's still very good. Braum got a bit of a nerf. He was a little too tanky for a 2 cost. So can still tank pretty well, just maybe not infinitely like he was before. Gnar got a bit of a buff, so hopefully Gnar should be a little bit more exciting. I like Dragonmancer Gnar, kind of fun. Kiana got a bit of a buff, helps out Assassins a little bit, and Tempest can actually crank out some decent damage. You should be excited about a 2-star Kiana in Stage 2. Yone just gets some slight adjustments. Honestly, nothing you'll ever notice. All right, big changes here. Lee Sin got a pretty big change where now whenever he hits something, let's say he kicked something for 1,000 damage, before if it killed them, they're just gone, that's it. Now what'll happen is you kick them, they fly, hit through all the targets they would have hit through, and then take the 1,000 damage. So you can get some really big knockback kicks on Lee Sin. Should be a much more fun unit, and Lee Sin also provides new utility, where anything hit by Lee Sin's kick now gets their MR shredded. So if you don't have a Shiv or Ionic Spark lying around and you need some MR shred, you can throw in Lee Sin. This again helps like your Ao Shen comp, stuff like that. In addition, he got a mana buff, will cast a little more often, won't stun as hard, the utility has shifted from the stun to the MR shred, and the damage has gone down quite a bit actually. But again, should be a much easier to use, more powerful unit. Olaf, just a power shift. Little less power in the attack speed bonus, but more power in the slam. So he actually hit kind of hard there. Pretty cool. Volibear got a bit. Volibear lost legend, so but is still sticking around as a Shimmerscale Dragonmancer. Because of that, gained some HP, gained some armor and MR, gained some bonus HP on spellcast. So he gets to be a little tankier at default. Obviously less high of a ceiling because he can't max out with that crazy legend Dragonmancer build. But should be a very powerful unit and honestly helps Shimmerscale quite a bit. Now, one thing to note, by the way, as I keep going, if any of these numbers aren't perfect or exactly right, we've been making a ton of changes. This slide deck came together. It's very late right now. I'm sure I missed something, so get off my back. All right, Treasure Dragon. Treasure Dragon is still around. It happens at 4-7. But the thing to note here is it only happens 40% of the time, because 30% of the time you will be hit with an Order Treasure Dragon. Order Treasure Dragon basically says you're going to get a Radiant item and some stuff. Still some components, things like that. But this is kind of like the high roll game where, okay, everyone's getting a Radiant item. Rerolls still cost 1 gold. But yeah, you can see the full table here. And as you can see, 30, 60, 90, 95% of the time, you're getting a Radiant item plus some stuff. But there are some crazy rolls in here. You can see 3 loaded dice and 2 full items if you're willing to give up a Radiant item. 2 duplicators if you're willing to give up a Radiant item. But there's also a crazy 100 gold payout here, but again, no Radiant item. So some interesting choices here. The Rascal Gloves plus 2 Thieves Gloves one's probably my favorite of the high roll ones. But yeah, generally otherwise pretty simple. Finally, there's the Chaos Treasure Dragon, which happens the other 30% of the time. This one is a little more interesting. It's just a general mix of stuff. You'll still probably get an item component, so if you're looking to finish off your IE, cool. But the mix has some other interesting stuff, including like Ornn items, target dummies, emblems, things like that. So if you want to see the full table, you can see here 30% of the time you get an emblem, 20% of the time there's an Ornn item, 20% of the time it's a target dummy and a component and a full item, 20% of the time it's like 3 full items but no components. And then you start getting some other mixes here. There's a fun one here that's Chalice, Locket, Zeke's Herald, and Randuin's Omen. It's like the ultimate support drop. There's a duplicator and an emblem. You've got an Ornn item and an emblem. So you can get some pretty cool combinations here. The ZZ Rot Portal, Rocket Fist, Shroud one is like the ultimate annoy your opponent drop. So check them out. So there's the ones. But like I said, most of the time, 95% of the time, you're getting one of those first 5 entries. So cool. So yeah, more Treasure Dragons should make for some more unique game experiences. Fun times. All right, on the item side, there's a lot of item changes, but they're all mostly small. The only big one to talk about is Frozen Heart is gone, has been replaced with Protector's Vow, which basically says when you drop below half health, you give you and all allies around a shield and some armor and MR for a little bit. Really good on the front line, just makes your team generally more tanky, pretty solid, especially if you're going to group up. That's when it's extra good. Seen a lot of people play this with Darkflight so that you have like 5 of these and you're getting tons of shields. Check it out. It's been pretty powerful all through PB though. Spear of Shojin has been changed now, so instead of having to give up AP to cast quicker, you can actually have both. So it lost 3 mana per auto, but gained 20 ability power. So hopefully something like this on an Ao Shen means you can cast quicker and hit harder, which will feel pretty good. Other changes, Archangel now displays current AP instead of stacks, just kind of a quality of life. Bramble Vest got a little bit more armor, Deathblade got a buff, Giant Slayer's easier to proc now that the dragon's health has all gone down. Ionic Spark doesn't say aura item anymore to confuse you. Last Whisper, this is a big one. Now grants 10% attack speed, so if you're stuck putting it on an AP user, it's not the end of the world. And the armor shred went up to 60%, so don't sleep on Last Whisper. Very powerful item. Morellonomicon, just a little less AP. The anti-heal still very good. Death Cap, a little more AP. Hurricane got a bit of a rework. Hurricane now, you should think of Hurricane like Static Shiv, where it's just bonus item damage proc, which means it can't crit, can't be dodged, doesn't interact with Omnivamp, but it is a bunch of bonus damage. The item also gives 20 AD instead of 10, so still very good on AD users. Just don't expect it to like double your healing output. Finally, some other big ones here. Some Spatula recipe changes. Spat plus Bow went from Ragewing Emblem to Swift Shot Emblem. Swift Shot Emblem's way more fun. Pretty cool combos. Super RFC. Good times. But Ragewing Emblem is just gone. No one really used Ragewing Emblem well. It was too confusing. Very Kiss Cursey. It's just gone. No more falling for baits. Spatula plus Glove went from Assassin to Lagoon. Lagoon's not particularly transformative. Just kind of there, but Assassin as buildable was really just too much. You can still get it through augments, tomes, things like that, but it being buildable was a little too much, so now it is elusive. On the Radiant item side, trying to get these more balanced as you have more access to them, so Banshees gives 50 more HP to the team. Blue buff actually goes down. There's a lot of good Radiant blue buff users this set, especially in Lagoon, so don't sleep on that item. Bramble Vest, more armor, and the damage procs more often. Deathblade, slight buff. Chalice of Power, slight nerf. It's a really good item. Giant Slayer, Threshold, easier to use. Last Whisper gets a pretty big buff here, so that should be a better item. Morellonomicon gets a pretty big nerf. Radiant Morello does a pretty big burn, didn't also need 60 AP. Hurricane got an adjustment, bit of a buff. Spear of Shojin got adjusted to match. Sunfire Cape goes down a little bit in health, and Zephyr, if you want to play the the one that the tier 3 augment where you see your opponent, you get a little bit more attack speed for your team. So Future Sight. All right, Shimmerscale. Shimmerscale is an interesting case here because it went from having Aatrox and Kayn, who were honestly not great units, to having Nasus, who's a very good early game frontline and pairs well with Idas, Jax, who is surprisingly good frontline, and Volibear, who got generally buffed, especially in the early game. Shimmerscale's really good in the early game. Because of that, we wanted to take the power out of the trait as opposed to the units, which means all the items have gone down in power a little bit. Crown of Champions now takes 2 extra seconds to proc. Determined Investor now takes another stack to proc, as well as grants 5 less gold. You still get that champ duplicator though, and the diamond hands. Draven's Axe has a little bit less base stats, and you only get 5 gold on cash out, but you're still getting that item component. Gambler's Blade has a little less bonus stats, but will proc more often, so generally turns out okay. Goldmancer Staff gets a little bit less base stats and a little less chance to proc, so it won't be making quite as much gold. Needlessly Big Gems, just a little less gold, still 500 health, still a lot of power. And Mogul's Mail probably got out the lightest with just 100 less HP. Still procs the same 2 gold, 40 stacks, all that stuff. So Shimmerscale items generally down across the board to make up for that unit power. Ornn items, just some light changes here. Mana Zane, not quite as insane, especially because there's a lot of good users this time. Randuin Sanctum, also pretty insane, but now actually grants the wearer the armor, so you don't have this awkward thing where the wearer is like some unit you don't want to have it. So just everyone gets 40 armor and MR, and Rocket Propelled Fist gets a tiny nerf. No big deal. All right, augments. I'll try to go through quick here. A couple augments have been removed. Assassin Crest, that's the tier 2. This shouldn't say High Roller. High Roller has not been removed. It's still in the game. Sorry, I'm not re-recording this video. Makeshift and Meditation, 1, 2, and 3. Generally not the most fun augments, and the things they're powerful with weren't very fun, so we took those out for now. Phony Frontline's gone. We've got target dummies through the Chaos Dragon. Dragon Alliance and Horde are basically built in, so we don't need that anymore. Golden Ticket's back, now that's not problematic with Astral. Battle Mage is back, and now it also gives armor in addition to the AP. Binary Airdrop has been buffed. It gives you 2 components, so you can start using it right away. Cluttered Mind was underpowered at 3, overpowered at 4, so we're going to try 3 and give you some units to start filling up your bench. Knife's Edge is back. Give that front line some AD. Works very well with some warriors, some Nyla, stuff like that. Penitence was another augment that like basically no one chose. Now it makes your Jade Statue explosions bigger. Should be a little better at least. Reckless Spending is now called Pay to Win. Works with your Shimmerscale units, and now all you have to do is press refresh. So instead of having to pay 6 gold a turn, it's only 2. Should be better. And then one of my personal favorite, Woodland Charm. Woodland Charm is back. It's the Prismatic. But instead of at the start of combat getting a 2,000 health unit, now it spawns during planning phase. It's whatever your highest health unit is, gets cloned, equal, and they benefit from traits. They just can't hold items. Which means you can run 6 Whispers, have a Siphon, and now you have 2 Siphons that are benefiting from 6 Whispers, as an example. So Woodland Charm's a really fun augment. Definitely check that one out. Cannoneer Crown now grants a Giant Slayer instead of a Hurricane. Guild Crown now grants a Protector's Vow, just mixing up some of the items a bit. Ragewing Crown is now Ragewing Soul, since we don't have Ragewing Emblem anymore. Tempest Crown went from Static Shiv to Hand of Justice. Now that's not attack speed based. Big Friend, again, a lot of health pools went down, so it's easier to activate. Blue Battery 1 is back, and now Blue Battery 2 is there. So Blue Battery 2 has been moved from Gold to Prismatic. Again, there's a lot of good blue buff users this set. But they also grant AP, so you can get the 10 mana, 10 AP, or 20 mana, 20 AP. And then Golden Egg has been adjusted ever so slightly. This just means it doesn't proc during Treasure Dragon, which means you lose 1 less stack. But there are some new drops in the Golden Egg, so check out some of the fun combinations that Kent has put together for you. All right, and then here's the full list of augments. New augments was not the primary focus of this set. It was more about the units and traits. But there are still a few here. Lagoon Heart, Dragon Heart, Darkflight Heart, Soul Siphon, which allows you to To give an extra trait to your Darkflight units, I recommend Whispers. That can do some really fun stuff. Consistency, which doubles your streak gold. Man, let me tell you, if you can go a full win streak with this augment, have fun. But otherwise, you can also try lost streaking, which is probably more consistent. Ha ha ha. Scoped weapons, which gives your units in the back 2 rows +1 attack range, so they kind of get like a free RFC. That's pretty cool. Protector of the Cosmos basically turns your Astral champions into scrap, where they gain a shield based on the number of components you have. Darkflight Crest, pretty simple. Dragon Imperialist, if you only have one dragon, dragons now execute the enemies they damage. So if you want to go a single dragon carrier, like let's say Deja Mirage, this is a pretty good thing because you get that execute early. Hero in Training, really fun one. If you're running Dragonmancer, you kind of get a second mini Dragonmancer. A lot of fun with that one. Lagoon Crest, High Tide. If you're looking for a lot of quick casts to stack up your Lagoon high score, High Tide's pretty good. Oasis gives your Lagoon champions every 6 seconds they heal and cleanse CC, so pretty cool. Essence Theft allows mages to drain mana and cast more often. Base Camp, it's basically Sniper's Nest for Scale Scorn. I think Base Camp's really good. If you can get that and play like an Olaf and a Lilia, they can hit really hard. Terrify allows units to take less damage from Whisper champions, or if they've been shrunk, so pretty good for that. And then on the Prismatic side, Lucky's Gloves. Thieves' Gloves will now always give your champions item they can use well, so kind of fun. Woodland Charm we already talked about. Scoped Weapons 2 is another insane one. Your units in the back 2 rows have infinite attack range. Really fun with like a Yone carry or Olaf carry. You just put them in the back and now they're basically Zayas. Kind of fun. Darkflight Crown gives you an emblem. Age of Dragons. This one has been changed. I should have updated the wording. If you have 3 or more dragons, every 5th attack from a dragon will fire a Dragon Soul Blast that does 30% of the target's max health. It's really powerful. I think it's actually every 4th attack. So this augment's been buffed quite a bit, so check it out. Dragon Soul, your team has 1 additional dragon. Basically allows you to get to that +1 army size easier. Lagoon Crown, Ragewing Soul, and then Birthday Present's probably the other crazy one here. Every time you level up, you get a 2-star champion equal to that tier -4. So let's say you level up to 6, you now get a 2-star 2 cost. Level up to 7, 2-star 3 cost. And yes, at 9, you get a 2-star 5 cost. So instantly level up, get some value. Pretty fun. And because someone's going to ask, when you hit level 10, it's just a 2-star 5 cost. You can't get dragons from it. So there you go. That's the super fast version of everything going on. It's a big patch. And that's it. That's Uncharted Realms. There's a new battle pass, new little legends. Dragonmancer Lee Sin with a new finisher. Yeah, should be a lot of fun. So, cool. All right, this goes live Thursday local time. Should be a lot of fun. Good luck on your rank climb. Remember, the ranked reset is a soft reset. So let's say you're Platinum 3, you will go down to Gold. But other than that, good luck with your climb. And yeah. All right, that's going to do it for me. Have fun in Uncharted Realms. We hope you enjoy all the new dragons and things to play with. That's going to do it for me. Take it easy.